On February 19th of this year, Gianni Infantino stood up and told the world that every single one of the 104 World Cup matches was sold out. 508 million ticket requests, he said. Every game gone. The most in-demand tournament in football history. That statement is now the subject of a formal letter from two members of the United States Congress, who wrote to Infantino asking him to explain what they described as opaque, shifting, and potentially deceptive practices around ticket sales. Because here's what happened after Infantino made that claim. FIFA had to correct it. Their own organization walked back the statement, saying what he meant was that they expected all games to sell out, not that they had. And while FIFA was issuing that correction, their own website was offering tickets to dozens of group stage matches. The Athletic reported in late April that FIFA was struggling to sell tickets for the United States' opening match against Paraguay at SoFi Stadium, a World Cup host nation, playing their opening game on home soil at one of the most iconic sporting venues in the country, not sold out. And now, today, the data tells a story that is impossible to spin away. Ticket prices for more than 90% of World Cup matches are falling on the resale market. Group stage median prices are down 28% since February. The average get-in price, the cheapest seat available, has fallen from around $720 a month ago to roughly $560 this week. Prices are dropping 24% month-on-month and 8% week-on-week. A bubble has burst in real time, 22 days before kickoff. And what that means for FIFA, for the fans who bought early, for the host cities, and for the tournament itself is what we're going to break down today. Because this story is more complex, more revealing, and more significant than the headline numbers suggest. Let's start at the very beginning. To understand the ticket crisis properly, you have to understand the model FIFA chose for this tournament, because it didn't happen by accident. FIFA introduced dynamic pricing to a World Cup for the first time in 2026. Dynamic pricing means ticket costs aren't fixed, they move, up or down, based on demand, timing, and the market logic FIFA's system applies to each individual match. It's the same model airlines use for seats, or concert promoters use for headline shows. In theory, it creates an efficient market. High-demand matches find their true price. Lower-demand matches become more accessible as prices adjust. FIFA also, for the first time, built an official resale platform directly into the ticket ecosystem. If you buy a ticket and can't attend, you can list it on FIFA's own platform. Other fans can buy from you. FIFA takes 30% of every resale transaction. 30% from the seller and the buyer combined. The result of combining dynamic primary pricing with a 30% rake resale platform on FIFA's own website was entirely predictable once you looked at the incentives. Resellers bought blocks of tickets at early prices, listed them at multiples of their purchase price, and sat on them. Because why wouldn't they? FIFA's own platform legitimized the secondary market. The 30% rake meant FIFA itself was financially incentivized by high resale prices, and the dynamic pricing model meant primary market tickets could be, and were, pushed to extraordinary levels. FIFA listed front Category 1 seats for the World Cup final at $32,970. That's not a secondary market listing. That's FIFA's own primary ticketing platform. For context, the equivalent Category 1 final ticket in Qatar in 2022 cost just under $2,000. The most expensive single final seat FIFA listed for 2026 is 16 times that. 4 resale tickets appeared on FIFA's official exchange at $2.25 million each for one seat. In the same tournament FIFA's president promised would be the most accessible in the sport's history. U.S. Congresswomen Nellie Pugh and Frank Pallone Jr., whose home state of New Jersey hosts the World Cup final, wrote to Infantino on May 7th. Their letter was specific and documented. They described artificial scarcity, FIFA allegedly holding back ticket inventory to simulate demand and create urgency. They described shifting seat maps, fans buying Category 1 tickets based on a premium seat map only to be assigned seats that didn't match the location they'd been shown. They described shifting rules, terms that changed after purchase, leaving fans with tickets they'd bought under one set of conditions, now bound by different ones. They described in formal congressional language what many football fans had already experienced as consumers. The response from FIFA? They declined to comment.
Here's where things get interesting. Because the price collapse that's happening right now isn't just about greed. It reveals something important about the specific structural problem FIFA created with this particular pricing model. Keith Bagello is the founder of Ticket Data, which tracks every major resale market in the United States. He's been watching this market for longer than the 2026 World Cup has been in preparation. And what he's describing this week is something specific, a self-perpetuating cycle. When prices stay high and purchasing stays slow, fans who are watching the market start to wait. They see prices going down, they think, if I wait another week, they'll be lower. And because they wait, purchasing velocity, the speed at which tickets change hands, stays slow. And because velocity stays slow, sellers are forced to drop prices. And because prices drop, more fans decide to wait. And because more fans wait, prices drop further. Once you're inside that cycle, it's very hard to break. The only thing that typically breaks it at a sporting event is the start of the tournament itself, the moment when the games become real, when waiting is no longer an option, when the only way to be there is to buy now. That moment is 22 days away, and between now and then, the data says prices will likely keep softening, though Pagello noted last week that the pace of decline has slowed somewhat. The market isn't in freefall anymore, but it's also not recovering. It's hovering at levels that are still, even after a 24% monthly decline, well above what ordinary fans can absorb. The average group stage get-in price right now is $560, down from $720. Still $560. For a single seat, one match, not including transport to a stadium where parking has been eliminated, and public transport costs $105 return, in a country where the minimum wage in many states is under $20 an hour. For fans traveling internationally, add the airfare, the accommodation, the cost of living in a North American city during peak summer. Andy Bass, a London-based supporter who serves on the board of a fan trust for a Premier League club, told NBC News exactly what the picture looks like from where most international fans are sitting. It seems like there's just a layer of difficulty with this tournament, he said. The lack of transparency means a lot of people aren't even considering buying a ticket. Very few people outside of hardcore supporters are considering it. That sentence, very few people outside of hardcore supporters, is the sentence FIFA's commercial model cannot survive long-term. Now, let's talk about what this means compared to previous World Cups, because this is where the historical context makes the current situation genuinely extraordinary. The 2022 World Cup in Qatar was not a cheap tournament, but the average ticket price across all rounds, including the final, was approximately 40% lower than the equivalent in 2026. The most expensive individual Category 1 final seat in Qatar was under $2,000. In 2026, FIFA listed primary market final seats at just under $11,000 for standard Category 1, rising to just under $33,000 for front row Category 1. And on the resale platform FIFA itself operates, those same tickets have appeared at $2.2 million each. In Russia in 2018, a comparable Category 1 final seat cost approximately $1,200. In Brazil in 2014, around $800. The 2026 final ticket at FIFA's primary market price is 8 times what it cost to attend the equivalent match 12 years ago in Brazil. This matters because the argument FIFA uses to justify these prices is a U.S. market argument. Infantino's specific reasoning is that the tournament is operating within the American entertainment economy, where premium sports events command premium prices, and setting lower prices would simply invite arbitrage, resellers buying cheap and selling expensive. It's a coherent argument in isolation. But here's the problem. The World Cup is not an American entertainment product. It's a global football event that happens to be hosted in the United States this cycle. Its attendees are not primarily American consumers who accept the NFL and NBA's pricing logic without question. They're football fans from every country on earth. countries where average wages are a fraction of the American median, where a $560 ticket represents a week or two of take-home pay, where the World Cup has historically been the one tournament that felt, at some level, accessible to people who love the sport deeply but don't have unlimited money. The FIFA pricing model treats the World Cup as a luxury product in the US market. The World Cup's fans globally do not experience it that way, and the gap between those two things is what the ticket crisis is made of. Let's make this human, because behind every number in this story is a real person who made a decision based on a reasonable expectation and found the reality very different from what they were promised. Think about the fan from Germany who applied during the first ballot in December 2024. They secured their ticket at an early dynamic price, let's say around $800 for a group stage match. They booked flights, they booked accommodation, and now, 16 weeks later, the resale market price for an equivalent ticket in the same section is around $500. They've overpaid by 60% relative to what the market is now willing to accept. Their ticket is non-refundable. FIFA's terms are explicit on that point. Or think about the English supporter who's attended every World Cup since 2010, who budgeted based on 2022's pricing structure, who looked at the numbers for 2026 and decided for the first time in 16 years not to go. Not because England aren't in it, not because he doesn't want to be there, but because the arithmetic of flights, accommodation, transport, and match tickets reached a number that doesn't work on his salary. His seat is somewhere in the data showing slow purchasing velocity, one of the millions of empty slots in a stadium that should be full. There's also a specific category of fan who has been damaged by the pricing model in a way that's gotten almost no coverage. The fans who bought tickets early on FIFA's own platform at dynamic prices that were, at the time, the only prices available, and who have since watched those prices become available at significantly lower levels as FIFA released additional inventory. They bought in good faith at the price they were offered under a model that subsequently shifted against them. And when they looked at the secondary market and considered selling to recover some of their cost, they discovered that FIFA takes 30% of every transaction, 30%, from someone trying to recoup money on a purchase made in good faith at a price the market no longer supports. The ex-president of Liverpool FC said it plainly. FIFA is taking advantage of the unique commercial opportunities in the US, the secondary market being legal there, the entertainment market pricing norms, to make money. So where does this leave us? What happens next? The most likely scenario is the late surge theory. Major events historically see a rush of buying in the final weeks before they begin, as fence-sitters can no longer afford to wait. Fans who've been watching prices fall decide the floor has arrived. Fans who haven't been watching suddenly realize the tournament is here and scramble for the experience. Some of that will happen. The purchasing velocity will likely pick up in the next 2 weeks. But here's the counter-argument from the data. The U.S. opener against Paraguay at SoFi Stadium, the most profile group stage fixture in the American leg of this tournament, the game every American football fan should theoretically be desperate to attend, is still not sold out. Still, with 22 days to go. If the late surge theory were going to rescue this tournament's ticket story, it would be showing up most clearly in that fixture. It isn't showing up there. The worst realistic scenario is one where the self-perpetuating cycle continues right through to kickoff, where the first matches of the tournament kick off in partially filled stadiums, not empty but visibly short of capacity, and the television broadcast captures sections of gray seats where orange and yellow and red and blue should be, where the economic story of the tournament, the hotels running soft, the transport disputes, the ticket bubble that burst, becomes as much a part of the World Cup narrative as the football itself. FIFA's response to all of this has been consistent. We've sold 5 million tickets, demand is strong, the market is operating as intended. They've pointed to the legal complexity of resale in the US as partial justification. They've noted that prices are not unusual for premium American sporting events. And Infantino's famous hot dog comment that he would personally deliver one to anyone who paid $2 million for a final ticket has become the moment that defined, for many observers, how FIFA's leadership relates to ordinary football fans during this crisis. It was not a reassuring moment.
even for people who understood the joke. Here's what I want to ask you directly. If the price of following this tournament on the ground, the actual cost of buying a ticket, getting to the stadium, and being in that atmosphere has gone beyond what you would pay, does that change your relationship to the World Cup? Or does the football itself, the matches, the moments, the stories, compensate for being in it from a distance? And for the people who did pay early prices that the market has since undercut, is FIFA's pricing model something the sport should accept as part of operating in the US entertainment market? Or is this the moment that requires a genuine structural rethink of how the World Cup's most basic product, the match ticket, should work? Leave it in the comments. Every single one of these conversations is worth having. Hit the like button if this breakdown gave you something real to work with. Subscribe if you want to follow this tournament properly, the full picture, not just the scorelines. We're here every day now until July 19th. This story is still developing, and as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.